Hello and welcome to the Sunday Guardian show by Joyita Basu. Viewers, at the time of recording, the BRICS summit is ongoing in Brazil's Rio de Janeiro. But as is usual practice, the declaration of the summit has already come. Now, the thing is there's something very interesting and stands out, particularly for India. It's a strong condemnation of terrorism. Something we did not really see in Kazan, the last BRICS summit in Russia sometime in 2024. But unlike the last time, this declaration not only comes out very strongly against terrorism, terror financing, terror safe havens, and cross-border terrorism, it also mentions Jammu and Kashmir by name and the terror attack that took place in Pahalgam on 22nd April. So you see, it kind of condemns it very strongly, and that itself stands out primarily because you see, not only has BRICS, particularly I would say in this case Brazil, which is Brazil's presidency, and Brazil is the deciding factor ultimately. The thing is, so Brazil has backed India fully, totally when it comes to this particular insertion in the declaration about terrorism. But what is important is that China, you see, this also means for the first time ever after the Pahalgam attack, China has put its name to a document which condemns cross-border terrorism in unequivocal terms. In other words, the subtext is Pakistan, China's, iron brother, comrade, whatever they call each other. So you see, and this is the first time because you see, after Pahalgam attack, what happened? There was some condemnation of the attack from the Chinese embassy in New Delhi. But beyond that, the Chinese, neither did Xi Jinping call the Prime Minister, unlike so many world leaders who called the Prime Minister to express sympathy and support Xi Jinping, and did not call. And nor did the Chinese from Beijing issue a statement condemning Pakistani terror. The kind of statement that was issued at that time, it was about drawing a false equivalence between Pakistan and India. And not only that, it kind of talked about, there should be a full investigation of how exactly this happened. And you see, even India cannot just sit there and say that, no, we are not. Basically, they were trying to talk about Balochistan. They were trying to sing Pakistan's script that India also uses terrorism as state policy. So you see, so in this case, this is the first time ever that China had to put his name to a document to say that what happened in Pahalgam was completely wrong and should not have happened. Now you see, apart from that, so if you are looking at it, this is a huge Indian victory. All right, it's a huge Indian victory on the international stage. But at the same time, there is always some give and take when it comes to any such declaration where your country has its way to get its voice heard. In this case, I would say to some extent, India has compromised on the Israel-Palestinian issue because you see, at one level, while India has been talking about, Palestinian two-state, there has to be a coexistence between Israel and Palestine. That is India's official policy that is reflected here also. But in this case, you have to see this in the vote that happened in last June, where India abstained from voting on Gaza ceasefire. There was a UNGA, United Nations General Assembly's resolution that was passed, which said that there should be immediate cessation of hostilities and there should be Israel should implement ceasefire. But India did not put its stamp on it, primarily because, you see, India was also middle, perhaps because India was also involved in Operation Sindoor at that time, and India was not really looking at the ceasefire. But so in this case, India obviously had to do some give for the big take that it took on terrorism, that it had on terrorism. So in this case, India kind of fell in line with whatever everyone had said. So, but at the same time, you have to look at India's policy towards this problem in terms of Israel and Palestine. It's far more nuanced. It's not black and white. When it comes to Israel, remember always that Israel is a huge friend of India's, and there is acceptance of it at different levels in among policymakers, in the military, in government, among our bureaucracy. But at the same time, when it comes to the Palestinian issue also, it is an age-old issue that we have been following. So we have always asked for a two-state solution, which is not very practical, but I will discuss about that in a different, in a different video. So in this case, I would say what has happened is that there has been some moderation of stand in term for India, but then you see, as our diplomats say, while our diplomatic establishment is also to a large extent divided about this Palestinian issue, but some of them are very pro-Israel and some of them are very anti-Israel. But the fact of the matter is that what matters is the give and take between Israel and India, the bilateral relations in terms of strategy, defense, security and all, that's very solid. So this particular, whatever India says in this declaration does not really affect that relationship, and Israel also understands how important a partner India is. Generally do not take these declarations that seriously when it comes to the Israel part. Now you see, India has also got another thing in its favor in this declaration, and that is the mention of UNSC. Now BRICS countries back the India, Brazil and all as members of the UNSC. This is important because in earlier documents, even though Russia and China have been talking in terms of expanding the reform of multilateral institutions and agencies like United Nations and all, they have never used the word UNSC in the declarations. So for the first time, we also see Security Council coming into the declaration. So obviously, is Beijing modifying its stand? Russia has always supported India as a member of the UNSC, but when it comes to Beijing, is it moderating its stand? Well, difficult to say, but at least in this particular case, they have supported it. But will it actually translate into India becoming a member, or China supporting India until the end, when India becomes a member? Well, I'm not so certain about that, because China plays its own little games. So you see, also there is talk that because Xi Jinping did not come, because Putin cannot come, because for the BRICS summit, that it is losing its shine. Well, that is not really the case, because the very presence that Lula is there, Brazil's president is there, South Africa's leader is there, and of course Prime Minister Modi, that itself takes care of, among the three of them, they carry enough heft to ensure that the BRICS summit succeeds, which it has happened actually. And now if I can talk a little bit about, this sudden outburst that is coming from Trump after the BRICS declaration, in which they came down very heavily on unilateral imposition of tariffs, which is against WTO rules, which is in fact. Now Trump is very angry and started talking about, after the BRICS declaration came out, Trump issued a statement saying there's going to be a 10% extra tariff for the countries adopting an anti-US policy in the BRICS. So, okay, everybody is affected by it. And the fact of the matter is that, but let Trump prove what is anti-American in actual terms of policy, BRICS policy, what is anti-American? Well, even if he looks for it, he may not be able to find it. Because you see, our declaration is, after all, it's kind of a diplomatic exercise where countries kind of come together and they sit down and then they write things. And as I said in the Israel case, just because we are India is taking an quote-unquote anti-Israel stand in the BRICS declaration, that does not affect India-Israel strategic partnership or friendship or alliance, even if I can use the word alliance in this case. So what is Trump going to base his 10% additional tariff on. What is anti-West in this? Anyway, India has been very clear right from the beginning that BRICS is not anti-West. BRICS is non-West. India is not anti-West, India is non-West. Only two members of BRICS, Russia and China in particular, want to make this into an anti-US body, but it has not succeeded because of the presence of countries like India and Brazil in particular, both of which are very, very pro-West. So the whole point of trying to paint the BRICS as an anti-West body does not work. Now, apart from that, where is all this talk about BRICS currency, which has been rattling President Donald Trump so much, who has been accusing the BRICS of trying to implement de-dollarization. Where is the BRICS currency? There is no BRICS currency. India is very clear that there is not going to be a BRICS currency. You see, one of the reasons which India will not say and state explicitly, that is because of China. If there is a BRICS currency, it is going to be totally driven and led by China, and that is not in India's interest. And even apart from that, all the the nitty-gritty involved in coming out with a currency which will be used by say 11 BRICS members and several partners that BRICS currently has, it is next to impossible. So there is no de-dollarization happening, at least from BRICS. So what is exactly Mr. Trump going to base his policy on? Just because they have come out with a document in which one or two paragraphs state strongly against Mr. Trump's tariff measures, although without mentioning either Mr. Trump or the USA. So what is he going to base the whole thing on? And let's not forget, the more this threat of tariff and all, when it push comes to shove, anybody can go to the WTO. To an extent, even US influence is limited, because you see, if this is anti-WTO rules, say for example, the steel tariffs that Trump has promised, 50% tariffs on steel imported, which in fact affects Indian industry by quite a few $1 billion. India has already taken the US to the WTO on that. So the more Mr. Trump, instead of trying to work with countries that are part of BRICS, the more he tries to use the stick, saying that I'm going to finish you guys, I'm going to give you 10%, 20%, 100% tariffs and all. Well, sorry, the more useless and frustrated he sounds, if you ask me. You see, this is not how policy is implemented. This is not the way to win friends. Think of how many people in India have lost faith or the positive thoughts or positive feelings they had towards Trump. In fact, India was one of those rare countries that actually welcomed Mr. Trump's return to power. But what has Mr. Trump has done? But then, you see, this video is not about India, US or Mr. Trump, but it's about BRICS. So basically, when you look at the declaration, India has got its say, India has done some give, but it has been able to take a lot. And the very fact that so many countries are joining, and there is a queue for countries to join BRICS, there must be some reason to it, And India does bring stability, India brings democracy, India brings a lot about, how a state with a rule of law should function. So that really increases BRICS, I would say, attraction to people. India's digital revolution, that is one major way of bringing in other members. So the declaration gives a glimpse into that part as well. But apart from that, it's important for India because India is now taking over as the president of BRICS. Next year, the BRICS summit will be in India in 2026. Well, I'm certain in the lead up, we will be doing several videos and we'll be explaining several facets of what exactly BRICS is about and what BRICS will do. Thank you for watching. Until the next time.